So today, we're going to dive into a tale of two conditions that, on the surface, look almost identical. But in reality, they are worlds apart. It's a story that all starts with one super common symptom, a red eye.
I mean, we've all had it, right? You look in the mirror and bam, there's a bloodshot eye staring back at you. Your first thought is probably a late night, maybe some allergies, but how can you possibly know if that red eye is just a minor annoyance or if it's a serious alarm bell trying to tell you something? Well, that's the exact question we're unpacking.
Okay, so it all boils down to one single crucial difference, location. Is the inflammation just on the surface, on that thin outer layer of the eye? Or is it deep down, inside the actual wall of the eye itself? I mean it, this one little distinction, it changes everything. First up, let's meet the character in our story that you're far more likely to run into, Episcleritis. You can think of it like that annoying cousin. You know the one. Shows up unannounced, makes a bit of a scene, but at the end of the day isn't a real danger. So what is this thing really? Well, episcleritis is just an inflammation of the episclera. And I want you to pay close attention to the words being used here. Mild, self-limiting. Those words tell you pretty much everything you need to know. It's on the surface, and it has a habit of just going away on its own.
And that's really the key takeaway here. Most of the time, you don't even need to do anything. Your body just handles it. The inflammation calms down, and in a couple of weeks, the problem is gone. Which, you have to admit, is fantastic news for anyone who gets it.
So, because it usually fixes itself, treatment isn't really about fighting some big, scary disease. It's all about comfort. We start with the simple stuff, right? Cold compresses, maybe some artificial tears. If it's really bugging you, a doctor might give you some mild steroid eye drops or suggest an oral NSAID. That's just a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, but the goal is just relief while your body does all the heavy lifting.
Okay, now we need to turn to the other character in our story, Scleritis. And if episcleritis is the annoying cousin, then scleritis is the dangerous stranger knocking at your door. The whole tone shifts here because this condition is way more serious. This is when a red eye is a genuine red flag.
Just notice the complete change in language here. We've gone from mild to severe and painful. And we're not talking about a thin, surface-level tissue anymore. Now we're talking about something deep inside the sclera. That's the tough, white structural wall of your eyeball. This isn't just surface irritation. This is an attack on the eye's very foundation.
Now this is absolutely crucial to understand. Scleritis is rarely just an eye problem. A lot of the time, it's the eye acting like a smoke alarm for a much bigger fire happening somewhere else in the body. It is strongly, and I mean strongly, linked to serious autoimmune diseases. You know, conditions where the body's immune system gets confused and starts attacking itself. The eye is just one of the battlegrounds. And this, right here, is the bottom line. Because that inflammation is so deep within the structural part of the eye, it can cause real permanent damage. We are not talking about temporary discomfort anymore. This is a condition that poses a direct threat to your vision. So how does all this play out in the real world? Well, the huge difference between these two conditions means they lead down two completely different roads when it comes to treatment and what you can expect long-term. This is where that whole superficial versus deep thing becomes so incredibly important. This table just lays out the difference perfectly. It's night and day. With episcleritis, the goal is simple. Symptom relief, usually with some topical eye drops. But for scleritis, the goal is to get a whole systemic disease under control. And that takes systemic treatment. We're talking powerful medications taken orally or through an IV, things like high-dose steroids and immunosuppressants. These are heavy-duty drugs designed to calm down the body's entire overactive immune system.
So, what about the long-term outlook? For episcleritis, the news is great. The prognosis is excellent. Sure, it might come back from time to time and it can be annoying, but it doesn't cause any lasting harm.
For scleritis, though, it is a much more serious picture. The prognosis is described as guarded. What that really means is the outcome is uncertain. It completely depends on getting both the inflammation in the eye and that underlying systemic disease under control.
And here's exactly why that prognosis is so guarded. The potential complications are severe. I mean, we're talking about things like the wall of the eye thinning out so much it could actually tear, the retina detaching from the back of the eye, or developing glaucoma. Every single one of these is a sight-threatening event.
There's this quote from the source material that just hammers home how dangerous the most severe form of this can be. Necrotizing means the tissue is literally dying. It not only has the worst possible outcome for vision, but because it's so tightly connected to systemic vasculitis, a condition where the immune system attacks your blood vessels, the underlying disease itself can actually be life-threatening.
So after hearing this whole story, we land on the most important part, the takeaway. What do you do with this information? Well, it all comes down to one thing, getting the right diagnosis.
And this might be the most important message of this entire explainer. You cannot, I repeat, cannot tell the difference between these two just by looking in a mirror. An ophthalmologist needs to do a special exam to see exactly how deep that inflammation goes. That professional exam is literally the only thing that stands between diagnosing a minor issue and catching a medical emergency.
So this really sums up the two paths perfectly. One path leads to some reassurance and simple comfort care. The other path, it requires a full medical team, an eye specialist, the ophthalmologist, working hand in hand with a rheumatologist to manage a complex, body-wide disease.
Ultimately, this whole tale of two red eyes is a really powerful reminder, isn't it? That sometimes the simplest signs we see on the outside can point to something far more complex happening on the inside. It kind of leaves us with a question to ponder. What other simple symptoms that we might just brush off could actually be telling a much, much deeper story about our health?